So our first plot here we're looking at, we've got a high GPA with medium droplets. We're focusing on the nozzle selection portion of our protocols. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and as we go along, we'll show more and more of these individual plots. So Tim and Brad, from your perspective with Cropsmith, what are we seeing here? What was some of the results, at a high level? What do you guys see from this section?
We're seeing pretty good coverage and weed control by using the higher GPA per acre. This is kind of using a smaller droplet size or the incorrect nozzle size, so we don't have the control as you would by using the correct nozzle on these. Getting a coarse droplet on a post-application nozzle.
Okay. Tim, any thoughts on your end?
Well, it's always, if you're running a sprayer, you want to use lower volume.
Right.
But a lot of the chemistry that we use, we need higher volume. If we have more crop, higher weed pressure, there's a lot of conditions where you need that higher volume to get good coverage and get good control. And so we wanted to be able to show some of the differences that you might get. So we're comparing this higher volume to some of the lower volumes that we show later.
Okay. Mike, any thoughts from your perspective?
Sure. So you said from a sprayer perspective that guys often want to use lower volumes, but from a pure chemistry standpoint, I'm always advocating for higher volume, because higher volume is just going to equal that much more coverage.
Right.
So that's something that I always advocate for. And just in terms of, a comparison or the combination of nozzle and gallonage, certain nozzles are going to provide certain droplet sizes at different carrier volumes. So depending on which product it is that you're using and the type of coverage that you need, you're going to be able to vary what those carrier volumes are and the nozzle selection that comes with it to get that adequate droplet size.
Excellent.
I'd worked at a company where we did custom application, and so there was always a pressure on us to cover more acres with a load and everything. And so they're always asking, well, can we use less gallons per acre? And it was always this battle between, what's the proper gallons per acre? What do you need to have out there to get the proper coverage to control the weeds?
Yeah. Hey everybody, we're here at another plot. We're looking at the high carrier volume, or high GPA, that 15-20 gallons an acre. We're also looking at very coarse droplets, basically the incorrect nozzle selection for this product here on the crop. So Tim and Brad, what do we see from a Cropsmith perspective on some of these weeds? I see you guys have some examples here that we pulled from out in the field.
Yeah, because we had the coarse droplet size, we didn't get the good coverage on it. These beans were pretty good size when we sprayed. I mean, it's larger than you'd want to be spraying. But that just shows that there's a lot of importance to having the right pressures and the right volumes. And so these were down under the canopy. They didn't get touched by the spray, and so there's no signs of and we see right up here near the top where it was near the top and it got coverage. And it shows effect of the herbicide. But this weed was going to just keep on growing and come back up, and I think Brad has another one there that was...
Yeah, the same with here. You can still see where the contact was made on the plant, but we have very poor coverage. So a little bit of damage, but not enough to kill this particular weed.
Sure. Mike, we talked a little bit about from the Cropsmith side, from a product side, right? What are your thoughts and your perspective on these very coarse droplets? Obviously, the wrong nozzle for what we're doing here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so in this case, we utilize Liberty herbicide, which is a contact herbicide, and with contact herbicides, coverage is going to be absolutely key. And if you start to cut corners on any one of those aspects that influence coverage, you're going to start to lose efficacy. So in this case, we're at the high GPA, which is where we want to be with Liberty herbicide, but we're outside of the droplet range that we want to be at. We've gone too big now, and with bigger droplets, you then decrease coverage, and as we've said, you start to decrease coverage, and you're going to lose efficacy. So if you don't mind me borrowing that weed, obviously this is a weed that was too big to be targeting, but this is something that I see a lot, and it's a good indicator of a lack of good coverage is, you burnt the tops off. It's got this kind of a burnt matchstick kind of look, and it's clear that the only thing that got contact was the top, and everything else down here was protected because you just didn't have the coverage that you need. And I see this often on weeds that are much smaller, even a lot closer to that labeled weed height, and still a very similar result of that burnt top and still growth that's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, weeds damaged, it's not dead, it's coming back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So folks, we've moved down down the plot here a little bit. Now we're looking at kind of the other end of the spectrum, right? The low GPA, low carrier volume, somewhere in that maybe 5 to 10 gallon rate range. We're also looking at medium droplets here, so this would be the correct nozzle. But again, we've altered one of the factors. The nozzles are right. Now the carrier volume's a little light, perhaps. So Tim and Brad, what are you guys seeing here on this plot, or maybe in your experiences with that lower carrier volume?
When we start with a lower carrier volume, there's just not as much material to cover the weeds. And so you can get the right droplet size and you can have the right pressure, you can have everything right, but there's just not enough to have good coverage of the weeds. And so that's a lot of times you'll get weed escapes when you're too low on your volume of water that you're using.
Yeah, I think the low carrier volumes work much better on your soil applied pre-plant chemistries, but once we go to a post-application, the higher volumes are definitely where it's at and where you're going to get your efficacy at.
Yeah. Mike, from your perspective on the medium droplets and the low GPA, what are your thoughts on carrier volume and that impact it has on a sprayer efficacy?
Well, I think it's it's already been said that the more water you have or the more carrier volume, that's that much more that you're getting out on that acre, and the better chances you have of getting good coverage. And you start to cut back on that, and you have to expect to lose that efficacy. And lower carrier volumes, they have a home for certain types of herbicides or certain instances, but in the case of what we're using, again, with the Liberty herbicide, we have to have that high GPA and the right droplet size. And I think this just speaks to the fact that there are a lot of different parameters that you have to keep in mind. Just because you've got droplet size right doesn't mean that everything is going to go right. You have to check all the boxes to make sure that it's going to be successful.
No, it's an excellent point. Greg, any thoughts from your end?
Oh, good points. I mean, I think this is very educational, and lots of variables in this process in terms of making these droplets correct for the amount of coverage that you're going to get. And you're looking for one thing I know that's popular, and thought that I would just point out that in terms of, we're talking about pressure, a pulse width modulation system is an offering certainly that many take advantage of to keep that consistent, and let that do the job. So just thought I would mention that.
Yep. Hey everybody, we're back again. We're at another section of the plot here. This is a pretty interesting one. The Cropsmith guys were pretty excited to get to this section of the field. We've got low GPA, which on this product was not the right level. We probably should have had something in the medium to high GPA for the Liberty we're using on this portion of the plot. But we also have very coarse droplets, right? So we've shown you maybe one or two things that are bad. Everything was probably incorrect or off label here, right? Probably too low of a GPA, the wrong nozzle selection, and the result shows. So I know, Tim, you've got a couple plants here that you wanted to point out and show the folks what happened.
Yeah, so you can see there, that there's a lot of green tissue on this yet. So it wasn't the right way to spray this. I mean, so we didn't have enough carrier volume, we didn't have enough pressure, we didn't, the droplet size was too coarse. And so, the weeds aren't going to get controlled. They're going to come back up and cause us problems. We have another plant over there that's showing the same thing. You can see a little bit of contact burn on the leaves, but we effectively did not control these plants. And so it was a wrong nozzle setup. It was a wrong setup for this, for spraying this. And that's what we want to show, is that there's a right way and a wrong way to spray things. And we got to do it the right way if we're going to get good control of weeds.
And Tim, would you argue that you start damaging weeds like this, doing the wrong process here with selection, and that just makes the weeds stronger, makes their
when you damage a weed and slow down its growth in any way, it becomes a harder weed to kill. So if you come back and try to do a rescue treatment, they're harder to kill. You're going to have more trouble doing that. So you want actively growing weeds. You want to spray them right the first time.
Do it right the first time.
And get them dead. And sometimes the weather prevents that from happening. You're in a droughty situation. You've had high rains and can't get into the fields and spray them when they need to be, and the weeds just keep growing. So sometimes you're spraying weeds that are larger than you would like, and that's when you want to really go with higher pressures, higher spray volumes, try to get everything right so that you can get those weeds.
That's right.
Yeah, Dave, we did a lot of things wrong here. I mean, especially from a a Liberty perspective, you start to think about checking those boxes of, we've got a low GPA, so we can't check that box. We've got the wrong size droplets. So now your coverage is extremely affected. And not only that, but you went out and you tried to kill really big weeds.
Yeah.
So those are three major strikes against you.
Yeah.
There is a very slim chance of getting any type of good weed control in a situation like this.
Well, there you have it, folks, the triple hat, or the the triple crown of what not to do, right? A really good section of the plot here to look at and have some takeaways.